I get a lot of cool messages from people, so shout out to them, letting them know that like, oh, hey man, really good match. You inspire me to someday step in the ring, or hey man, you inspire me to go to the gym, or like little things like that. Because at the end of the day, you kind of get lost. All the wrestlers get lost with that idea of like wanting to inspire people because you just want to go and main event WrestleMania. Of course, that's the end all be all goal. Everyone wants to be the WWE champion, main event WrestleMania.
Of course.
But another reason we get into it is to inspire people and make them feel the way other people make us feel, So
Right.
I look at people like Dean Ambrose or Seth Rollins or AJ Styles, whoever, and I'm like, dang, they really lit this like fire underneath.
What is your favorite scary movie?
Probably the first Scream movie, if I had to pick.
Mm-hmm.
Most people would probably think American Psycho. I can see why. But no, I like the first Scream movie, honestly. I grew up watching it so many times. There's something about it that just seems so ahead of its time, I guess. Like they knew how to make something look obvious in your face, but then still manage to like surprise you, catch you by surprise. And there was just so many little elements in that movie. Like it was funny, suspenseful. Like it didn't just feel like a generic horror movie. Like there was a good story to be told. Every year I watch it, I see something new. So just little stuff like that. Like I enjoy it every time I rewatch.
What was like the one scene that kind of caught you by surprise watching the first Scream? The first time, of course. Every subsequent watching, you're like, I'm used to it. But for the first time seeing the first Scream movie, what was the one scene that kind of caught you off guard?
The first time I watched it?
Yes.
I mean, I could be generic and be like everybody else, be like, oh, when it turned out that it was Billy that ended up being the killer.
Right.
That's so yeah, that's the point, But I probably have to say like there's a few. I haven't watched it since Halloween too, so I know certain things by heart, but I'm trying to really go back to like the one time I first time watched. I was really young. It might have been either when they killed Billy, because I didn't think they were gonna do that, or you could say like when they revealed that there was two killers with Stu. You could say that too. Or when they fake killed Billy, when everybody thought he was the killer, when he like did the corn syrup thing, like right before that when he was like getting stabbed or whatever. That's kind of surprised me. I remember because I was like, oh, they were making you think this guy was the killer and he just got killed, So then it made up at the end when he actually did end up being the killer, because it was this big like, whoa, like where am I? Like it was just like it threw you for a whole loop, which is like so like ahead of its time, that way of like writing that. To me, you could have gotten away with and making Billy just like, oh yeah, you guys were right all along, or not make him the killer at all. You could have made it so like in your face obvious the whole movie, and then have it be like just Stu, or have it be like one of the other characters. But the way they did that was so like unique, and I can't say I've ever seen another movie, let alone horror movie, kind of throw you for that kind of loop before.
Were you familiar of like what Craven does besides Scream?
I know he made the did he make Nightmare on Elm Street too?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that was,
but
yeah.
other than that, no.
Yeah, because like it's interesting how horror movies now, it's a dime a dozen, but for you, what makes such a in a perfect world, like what would be that horror movie?
Definitely that element I was talking about before, where it like makes you think it's gonna happen, and then that doesn't end up happening, but then it does. Like that to me, and that doesn't just go for horror movies. So this might not even answer your question, but like that's just such a cool concept in general to me, because it makes people go back and forth and they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But
Yeah,
a good I can say
the swerves will get you.
exactly. I can say what doesn't make a good horror movie, that like to me, when you rely on like too much gore, too many jump scares, I don't know. I
I
know
know
there's,
just the one too. I know just the
you
one. But go
know,
ahead.
I really enjoy, and this is why I love professional wrestling as well, like the art of storytelling and like uh not just making you scared of the movie, but making you like feel for the characters as well. Like I remember when I went to go watch, and this is probably gonna blow your mind a little bit, but I went to go watch It Chapter 2 in the theaters, and
Mm-hmm.
it was another one of those like movies that was like Scream, where it was like enjoy, like funny to watch. You felt connected to the characters. It wasn't very scary, but it was very like story heavy. But it just so happened to be scary. Like to me, that's what makes it like an enjoyable scary movie. But there's so many different like reasons you could go to a theater. Like uh, on flip end, I'm a big like Wolfman fan. So like I really love the
Yeah.
2010 Wolfman. That was a decent story, but like you're watching it for that, like, oh, it's the Wolfman, you know? So there's a lot of different elements
Yeah.
to me personally that like make me want to go watch a scary movie. But the one that sticks out the most is probably what I said with like the good story.
Yeah. And it's interesting how professional wrestling can go hand in hand with any storytelling medium. And to start off, like being the fan, what was the one moment that made you glue to watching wrestling as a weekly pastime, or how many days of the week that you would watch?
Like what moment you're saying like stuck out to me?
Yeah.
That's another hard one. I feel like it was just like a subconscious like growing. Like I never had that like I ever since I saw Hulk Hogan drop that leg on Ultimate Warrior,
Yeah.
brother. That's what I knew, like that,
That's a good majority, but yeah.
So I never really like had that. I think to me, I didn't even realize I was starting to love it, and it was just slowly creeping up on me, and I was like, dang,
Mm,
I like really like this. But like I said this on the podcast before, but my like hero growing up was Dean Ambrose. So like I
okay.
started watching him right after he got out of the Shield. So he was that like underdog, never say die. Like got his ass beat, got back up, got his ass beat, got back up. Like had that
Mm,
mindset. And to me, when I was like 12 years old, like that was the coolest thing ever. So like seeing him, like trying to see myself in him, kind of resulted in like myself or putting myself into the world of professional wrestling in a way that was like
mm,
deeper than just like entertainment. This was like slowly becoming like a part of me, because I was seeing myself in another individual. I was like, damn, I want to be like him. So just seeing that was like him on TV as well as the other guys. Like I would love Seth Rollins, AJ
yeah.
Styles, Roman Reigns, obviously, but like it was like that story in particular that when I first started watching, like hooked me, I would probably say.
It's interesting because um, switching roles to the fan and now being the wrestler and training under Dustin Rhodes, who's had extensive experience in television wrestling and everything in between. What was it like meeting him before he even put on the boots? When you got to talk to him, like, hey, I want to sign up here over at Rhodes Wrestling Academy.
So funny story. Didn't go that way. it
What?
it did no way. That's too cliche.
That was anticlimactic. I was like, okay, I
No,
was
no.
expecting like a grandiose. I was like, nope, completely
Well,
different.
I mean, it was cool, but it wasn't like you're the chosen one, the prodigal son, like welcome. It wasn't like that. But I remember it was like summertime during COVID. Like COVID was kind of slowly going away, and the world was kind of opening back up. And at this point, I just graduated high school, and I was like,
Okay,
I don't know what to do now, because like we were just on lockdown. Like, I just moved to the state of Texas, so like, I couldn't go. I guess I couldn't go to school because I didn't have I didn't live here long enough for. I guess it didn't let me go to school for like go to college or whatever, because
okay,
I didn't have like
right.
residency. That's what it was. So I was like, I don't know what to do. So I was gonna go to the military, and me and my dad were gonna go talk to a recruiter, and then like a week later, right before I did that, Dustin opens up or like posts on Facebook that he's like opening up the Rhodes Wrestling Academy. And as soon as I saw it, that was like the like sign from God, right? I was like, oh, that's where I want to go. You know, I've been trying to chase the wrestling thing for years, and I went to a couple schools, but like they always kind of had something iffy about them. And my dad's like, he wanted to send me to a good school because he cared about that, but it was like, oh man, this is just. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll just go to the military, come out, and then like look for wrestling school at that point. But like as soon as I was about to put my name on the dotted line for the military, the school opened up. And I was like, oh, that's where I'm going. And then I looked at the price, and then I'm like, I'm not going anymore. But then I was like, no way. Because I was like, I don't know, 17 years old, like no money. And I was like, you know what? This is my dream. This is what I want to do. So I sent him my application, and I made sure to have like, it's still on my YouTube channel. It's probably one of the first videos up. I put the most like cliche, like Rocky Balboa training video, like, I still like, I look back at it and it's like cool, but like I'm like I'm such a tryhard. Like I made this huge edit for the application video, which was just supposed to be you talking about, hey, I'm this XYZ and I want to go to the school because of this, and whatever. That was supposed to be the video, but I was like, no. I need to stick
go
out.
over the top.
So,
over.
I literally had days to film. Like I went to my local high school, filmed me running on a track, me on the bleachers. Like a couple days later, I had my mom wake up ridiculously early before, like while the sun was rising. And I'm like, all right, you know that scene in Rocky when he's like running down the road and like the camera's following him as he's running, like it's like running in sync with him. Like they had to do that with like a vehicle moving next to him because it's like it's not like filmed like this while he's running. It's filmed like he's a car, running. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, Mom, I need you to film me running down the road. Great. So she's like, my mom's got one arm too because she's born with one arm. So she's driving down the road and she's got the other like one arm and she's trying to balance like I think maybe it was my brother helping actually. I don't remember, but trying to balance like the phone, trying to like have me run down the road, like so I put together this whole like video montage and I sent it to the school, and I remember at the end of the video I was like, I need to like have a solid go home line before I even knew how like promos worked. But I looked at the camera and I was like, and I'll see you soon, Dustin. So
hey,
so hate it, but anyway, sent the application in, didn't hear back, and then like I think it was like January 2nd. I sent it all the way in like maybe end of October, maybe November. Sent it to him, and I knew he was having his first camp in January. So I'm like, oh, I hope I can be part of the first camp. But January 2nd, the first camp was starting in like 5 days. And I'm like, you know what? I guess I didn't make it, whatever. So January like 1st or 2nd, me and my brother were putting together a pull-up bar we got for Christmas in our garage. And I get a random phone call from Austin, Texas. And I looked at the phone and I'm like, look at my brother. I'm like, dude, shut up. This could be important, you know? Pick up the phone and I'm like super nervous. I'm like, it could be. And for some weird reason, I answered it and just immediately thought this was probably just a spam call. So I just go,
oh no. Okay.
Hello? And they're like, and I hear, hey, is this Sal, what my shit name? And I was like, yeah, who's this? Yeah, this is Dustin Rhodes. Call is my personal phone number. And I'm like, my heart just sinks to my stomach, and I look at my brother.
You
and
just
I'm
saw
like,
the face of God at that point.
Yeah, like I look at my brother.
You heard the face of God.
For real. You can do that? What the heck? Why is a little
bubble that's evil. I'll fix that.
So I look at my brother, and I like put the phone down, and he's probably still talking on the phone. I look at my brother, I'm like, and he's like, well, answer. So I'm like, oh yeah. So I'm just talking to him. He's like, yeah, man, saw your video, saw you running down the road like Rocky Balboa. I thought that was cool. But yeah, I want to have you part of my third camp. And I was like excited, but then like deflated because I was like,
because you got the news, but it's not the one that you want.
No, I wanted to be like the inauguration, like the first camp. So I'm like,
okay.
I was like, yeah, I was still nervous. I'm like, okay, that means like, I'm like, okay, so when's that?
You made it? Question mark.
Yeah, I was like, I'm like, cool. When is that? And he's like, it'll be August 27th, and 27th is my lucky number. Side note, but I was like,
There you go.
okay. I was like, okay, yeah. So, he talked on the phone with my dad. I had to talk to my mom. We got all the information, and then hung up the phone. And I looked at my dad. My dad just like, now it's time for like the longest Rocky training montage of all time. Like now the real training starts. So I was like, for what is that, 7 months, I was just working out twice a day. I think I had 2 jobs to save up for the school still, and just like cutting random promos that were like god awful. I still got them on my phone, but like cutting random promos. Just really trying to like hype myself up, and let alone I had a bit of an ego because I was like, Dustin told me I was the first pick, and I was like, I don't know, 17, 18 years old. So like being told that, you're like, by Dustin Rhodes,
you're over the moon, literally.
Dude, I might as well have been told I just like I'm beating John Cena at WrestleMania. Like that to me was like, all right, I'm like, okay. So then I'd say that in my freaking god awful promos. And yeah, so I remember like going in that first day, and I had this huge like the prodigal son, like, I'm here, guys, like, and then took my first bump, and then I was like, ow, like,
That's unreal.
Yeah, I was like, this is not soft. So I remember even like pushing the pad, walking up, like hitting the mat. I was like, people do this? Like, that's great. So then like, got my ass beat that first day, and then just fell into my dad's car because I think we just did bumps. So we might have hit the ropes a little bit too, but just callous in your body. Just got in my dad's car, and he was like, "So how was it?" I remember the only thing I said, because I was so disappointed in myself, because I was coming off of like 7 months of like, let's go, to like, I just said, I'm not very good at this, but one day I will be. So that's
because it's interesting, like how, like as you started to really understand like just the basics of how wrestling is going to be, and the more you started to really understood what you're doing as basics, like what were some lessons that you've learned besides "ow, my back hurts"
in wrestling?
Yeah,
like basics, like physical basics, like,
well, that and understanding your move set and how you started to really know who you are as a wrestler as well. We'll talk about character work later, but like just learning the fundamentals. What were some of those lessons that you've learned to say, "Hey, I'm not doing that again," or "Okay, I'm doing this better. Let's keep going."
I was pretty like, and this went for like the first year or two, I was just pretty curious to see like what I was capable of doing, because I was always like an athletic kid. Like I didn't do gymnastics, but I like played basketball, played a little bit of football. I skateboarded a lot, so I was used to like falling down and hurt myself. But yeah, I knew I had like some athleticism. I was just kind of like I felt like right after Spider-Man got bit by, and no pun intended, because I'm a big Spider-Man fan too, but like when Spider-Man got bit by the spider, like the next day he's kind of seeing what he can do. That was a lot of like those 3 months, which were just like, okay, like, or it's kind of like a baby taking his first steps, where it's like, okay, this is how you front roll, this is how you do this is how you do that. So I was pretty like curious, and I just kept going until I realized, like, and we'll get into this later, which is just like, oh, a lot of this isn't super necessary to be all around good wrestler. Like, I was just like, yeah, I need to know how to do a 450 off the top rope. Like, so I would literally just do anything I possibly could. Like, I was just like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. It was fun, but at the same time, there was a lot of it that was like, am I just learning this because I think it's like required, or am I learning this to see what I can do? So it was just like the weird kind of mix there. But no, I would say I was just very curious. Like, I was like, okay, I've never really done anything super like flippy or like any sort of like tumbling. I don't know. I just only athletic like background I had was like track and skateboarding and stuff. So I was just like, okay, let's give it a try. And what works, and what doesn't, we'll just be like, okay, we'll just workshop it. Like, I don't think there wasn't a thing I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm too good for that. Unless it was like some sort of, shooting star press off the top rope. I can't do that. But uh, there was a lot of like, I would say like when it came to things that were hard, I knew that it was necessary to learn them anyway. Like, it was like, okay, when I was in school, like, to contrast, when I was in school growing up, I never understood the point of learning the Pythagorean theorem or whatever it's called. And I was like, why do I need to know this? But in wrestling school, when Dustin's teaching us how to do an arm drag, and that's done so many times a match, I was like, dang, I'm not good at this, but like, I'm going to have to be, like, there was no like halt in my learning ability. Like, that's just wrestling in general. You have to keep learning, keep expanding your brain. But yeah, I like with most things that Dustin was teaching, I just knew like, oh, I got to get it. I got to do it. Even if it really sucked or really hurt, you kind of had to touch every stove,
Because now that you're refining and you know what you're capable of as a wrestler, character does come into it. But you did not start as Vin Parker. You started. Let me confirm this for me. So you started off as Slim 7, and did it segue into Vin Parker?
Essentially, yeah, that wasn't like the original idea, but we can kind of talk more about that for sure.
Okay, well, I'll rephrase that. So as you started to learn your moveset, character work is part of what it means to be a wrestler. But you didn't start off as Vin Parker, but one of your characters is Slim 7. Where did that come from originally?
That was kind of like a hybrid of everything that I thought was cool. And it ended up becoming something else entirely that I just kind of wasn't having fun with towards the end before I kind of took my hiatus. But at the beginning, it was just like, oh, I'm just going to, it's kind of like creating your 2K character. And it was just like, well, these are all things. Yeah. Like, these are all things that I think are cool, So it was like a lot of, just gimmicky stuff I would do. Trying to think like gear designs I would think of, entrance things, just nothing that was like a set character, like a proper vibe. Right. It was just like, this is what I think is cool, So it was just like, hey, I'm just myself, but like I have a different name. That's at least how it started. And then once I started kind of like hitting the independent scene, going out and get my name out there, I noticed I had a bit of a I was very comfortable with just being a loudmouth and being like a smartass. So then that kind of came into the picture, and like I dyed my hair blonde to kind of like go with it. Yeah. So like, originally I was on the fence about a lot of things, but then I'm like, well, what's going to make me stick out even more? Like, I was obsessed with trying to look like a cartoon character. I was like, we'll dye my hair blonde. I pierced my ear, which like, nothing against it, but I was just like, that wasn't something me personally would do. I was just like committed to that character. I didn't know what the character was, but I just thought of like little things each time, that would like help kind of get the point across that I was kind of like a smart ass, like F-boy that was kind of just full of himself, So it's just like, what are these little things? Like I made a whole line of t-shirts called the MILF Slayer. And it was just kind of, so a lot of it was just like, a lot of it was still me, but it was just me with a lot of things attached to me that I wouldn't personally do. You know what I'm saying? So it was like a lot of my like attitude that was just kind of dialed to 11, but then it's like, well, let's do this to make me look louder. Let's do this. And so then I started to kind of like really, and I don't know a lot of wrestlers that struggle with this, but I know a lot of actors that struggle with this. And it might have been just because I was like young and impressionable and whatever, but I guess I think that's the word. But I let it kind of get to my head a little bit, and I let it kind of like define me as a human being. Like, oh, I am Slim 7, you know what I'm saying? like I would compare it. I don't know if this is entirely accurate because this might be a little bit of. I don't mean any offense to this, but like it's very similar to like Heath Ledger with the Joker, where he was just so obsessed with it. Obviously it went to another level because rest in peace. But with me, it was like no, no, no. Like I denied this like true version of Sal, who I really am, for this Slim 7 character, and so it was getting a lot of traction, and it was a lot of the fans loved it, but I just like it got to a point for me personally where I was like, man, this is like so far from like me. This is just kind of what people kind of either told me to do, and at the time I was kind of taking yeses, or I was like saying yes to everybody about advice, and I was just like, yo, yeah, I'll do that, yeah, I'll do that, yeah, I'll do that, and a lot of it just wasn't like my true like self anymore. It just became like just this big ball of like chewed up gum. You know what I mean? Like it was just like, oh, so it wasn't like a bad character or nothing. It was just I would just stop having fun with it. So I was like, and I had a lot of like personal stuff going on at the time. So I was like, you know what? Let's take a break from this. And then I hung up the boots then.
And when you were going back, you mentioned being on hiatus. When did that lead to eventually being you as Vin Parker?
I think like I'm trying to think of the word. Artistic. What is that? I heard the word the other day. Lack of artistic expression, maybe, or like, what's the word? You know what I'm saying? Lack
of expression, just to make it sure. You're losing. It's a lack of impression to what you're doing, basically.
Right. So there was a period where I was working on my job, and I was just lacking this like creativity in my life, and there was a large part of me that felt like I was going numb. Like I just didn't understand. Like I wasn't having fun just day to day. I had nowhere to put my mind. I had nowhere to put my money. I was just kind of like, well, what am I working towards? Like at least for me personally, like that was just like so difficult. And I guess it is lack of artistic expression. I'm gonna kick myself later if it's something else. But I remember I listened to Becky Lynch's book actually at my job, and I was like, she went through a similar period too, or I don't remember why I don't remember why she got out, but she got out for a while and she was taking a break, and she's like, I was trying to find what was like socially acceptable to like kind of like and be a part of in normal, like as a normal human being. Not that wrestlers aren't normal, we're not normal, but
right.
She's like, I remember this part in the book where she's like, oh, I'm a girl, so I should like purses and I should like get my nails done. I should like these things, but it's not me. It wasn't her. Right. So I remember hearing that and I was like, dang, I was already struggling with like my, like, oh, I don't understand. What am I supposed to do? Go to 9 to 5 and come home and just do nothing. Like, I was really struggling with that idea. And so I heard her I'm like, dang, I'm going through like I had the same feeling where it's just like, I have nowhere to put my creativity. And so I looked back at wrestling as, no, I can't go back to wrestling. It brought me all these problems in my life. But in reality, I don't think it was responsible for a lot of the problems that I had. I think it was just, I think no matter what, like life's going to give you problems no matter what. And I think I try to run away from wrestling to like avoid any sort of problems because I had tied the idea of problems to wrestling. But like, it's not just wrestling that's hard, and it's just like real life, like you're gonna face trials and tribulation regardless. But I remember thinking like maybe wrestling wasn't the problem. Maybe it was just the way I was perceiving those things in wrestling as the problem. And I think it was just like my subconscious or like me at the time, the way I kind of responded to certain things, that was the problem, So I'm like, okay, at that point I was like, okay, maybe I'll just kind of like, dip my toe back into this a little bit. So ironically, I I saw Hit at my job. He was getting his car serviced at my job, and I was like, I just saw him. I didn't see him for months at this point. And he saw me. He's like, what? He like freaked out. Like I looked completely different. I didn't have the blonde hair anymore. And he's like, well, he freaked out and just picked me up, and he was like hugging me. And he's like, yeah, dude. He started telling me these things. When are you coming back? And I'm like, oh, I'm not coming back. Da da da. I don't plan on it. He's like, dude, you got to, man. People miss you. People da da da. So like that was nice to hear. But
wow.
I was like, no, I can't. It's not. I can't. I refused it. Even though there was a part of me that really wanted to, I tried to just shut it down. Like I tried.
You were sheepish a little bit. You're like, I don't think this is the time or the moment.
Yeah, I completely thought I was just done. I was like, I had my fun with it. This is not for me. I try to literally put these monsters in the closet and just like forget who I was as a wrestler, which is very toxic. You know, you can't become somebody without without remembering who you were before. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
There was a large part of me that was just trying to like rebuild something without a foundation, which that foundation was that period of my life where I was in wrestling, you know? So I was like, no, that's not, it was never me. I never was a wrestler. I was just a regular guy, right? And then like a couple weeks later, once I started talking to him a little bit more about it, I called him in my car, because I remember I just think in my car a lot. Like that was my way of kind of like trying to get more in touch with my subconscious. Like, all right, let's really try to think about what the deeper issue is here. So I just called him, and I'm like, hey man, I think you know why I'm calling you. And he's like, catch your ass, I do. And so I was like,
it. That's definitely it.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I said, this is not for sure. This is just me. Like, let's give it a try. So I was like, when's the next training at the school? And he's like, this day, whatever, coming this time. So then I came back. I got attacked with a swarm of hugs, because at this point I was gone for like 7-8 months.
Wow.
Just without reason. I just kind of disappeared. And it felt pretty nice, because everyone like looked at me like I was CM Punk returning at Survivor Series. Like, what the fuck? Like they couldn't believe it. I was like, dudes, I'm like, good to see y'all, whatever. But yeah, I was, when I came back, it was a pretty cool moment, but it was also very hard, because it was like coming back to this thing that I thought was giving me problems. And it was hard it was like kind of going back to an ex-girlfriend almost. I kind of get that same vibe where you're like, oh, you know, but it ended up being all right though.
Because now when you're starting, because the one thing I first noticed you was that video on your Instagram of Se7en's dead. When you were producing that and shooting it and slowly turning into that character with Vin Parker, what was that like? Finally realizing, holy crap, this is I'm back in it again in wrestling.
So probably like I didn't like really plan on like coming back the time that I did. I was still in the midst of like, okay, if I was like training a little bit, but I was like, okay, if I did come back, I knew for sure I didn't want to do the Se7en stuff anymore. I'm like, this is like,
it's in the past. That's kind of the idea of the video.
Right. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to find a way to kind of rebrand myself, but I wanted to make sense. You know, I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, now he's over here and he's got a different name and he's got a different. So I'm like, okay, how do I do that? So while I was still in the middle of thinking about all that, Dustin calls me, or he like has someone call me, because they needed to fill in for a match at the wrestling school for the show.
Okay.
I was at work and I'm like, what do you want me to do about it? Like, I've been training for like a month and a half. Like, I don't know. I just kind of got back in everything. He's like, dude, we need you to come back, whatever. Like, there was literally no one else that, well, we can call. So I was like, okay, fine. So I show up with like the only pair of tights that I had. I had some old kick pads that ripped like the Se7en logo off of. And they're like, okay, like you're just going by Se7en, right? I'm like, no. we're not doing that anymore. And they're like, what? And I was like, no,
Okay.
reset.
Good.
And I didn't
That's
have a
good.
reason as to like why yet. I was like, I don't know why. Well, maybe I did at this point. I was still kind of like fleshing everything out, but I was like, I know I just kind of want to start over, and I want people to be like a little confused a little bit, kind of get some like, why is he not Slim 7 anymore? You know, kind of subtly started rumbling. It wasn't like my total plan, but it was just like, okay, just do Vin Parker, because
You were
I don't know.
workshopping basically.
Essentially, yeah. So I had like a little bit of an idea. I knew, I think in that match I faced Ozzy. It was the Star Bash show on the YouTube channel. I remember I thought, I was like, what if I did like, I remember I didn't have an idea for like a character, but I knew if I got back into this business, I wanted to have a bit more of a clear, like, this is his character, this is his thing, not just like the Slim 7 character was just like this ball of gum with everything on it. Like it was just like this random character, right? I knew I wanted to have like a very clean cut, like understandable gimmick, you know? So I'm like, okay, just rebrand everything. I don't want to do the Slim 7 thing anymore. I want to completely rebrand it. How do I do that though? So I started thinking, I'm like, you know what I always wanted to do like in wrestling, but like I thought of it as a Slim 7 character. I didn't know how I was going to do it. Was like be some sort of like serial killer. I thought that was really cool. Like I always had that fascination with uh like serial killers in movies, and how some of them don't seem like serial killers. And this might sound a little messed up too, but like, sorry, my dogs are barking. Even like a little bit of Ted Bundy. Like I remember I watched his special, the Zac Efron special. I remember I watched that. Might have been on my time away, or like, no, it was like right as I left wrestling. I watched that one in like the October I left, and I was super fascinated by it. I was like, I'm also like a bit of a Zac Efron fan. Like, his character in Baywatch, I know it was a kind of a bad movie, but his character in Baywatch is a lot of like the inspiration behind Slim 7. So then it's funny because now his character as Ted Bundy, just seeing his like, he's a serial killer, but like he's a nonchalant, like he's just a regular dude, you know? Like I liked that dynamic, you know, it was very fascinating to me. And then I started to kind of look a little bit more into it. Like right around when I came back, I was like, okay, there's got to be something I can do to kind of like bookend Slim 7 though. You know, how, like, why did he just disappear? There's something there, right? Well, I can't just be like, oh, he disappeared. Now there's somebody else. I love storytelling. So there's something I can pull from that that's going to make it like entertaining to the audience, you know? Like, oh, I love having that, like I was a big fan of The Walking Dead growing up, and at the end of every episode, they had a cliffhanger. So I'm like, what if I did like my original plan, which didn't end up being like a cliffhanger idea, was just have the whole like death scene play out for the first Cartel show that I like returned at. I didn't face David Kidd, but I like confronted him. I was gonna have that death scene, and then just have like the last scene be like the golden mask, and then just the slice, and then you play my Titantron. I come out, reveal I'm Slim 7, right? Or the guy that was Slim 7 is the new Vin Parker, whatever. But remember, I wasn't happy with it just being that. And so I'm like, I don't know. So I didn't send it to the promoter, and I just did the return. I got a decent reaction though. A lot of people were still like, remembered me, which blew me away. Like there was a bit of a pop that I was like not expecting, because I'm like, I don't have the blonde hair. There's nothing that makes me look like I did before. So I'm like, they're not going to remember me. I'll just be the guy that's like, oh, I'm going to call you out the next show. But no, they remembered me, and they're like, yeah, man, you're not Slim 7 anymore. Like, that's crazy. Where have you been? Whatever. So I'm like, oh, okay. So the next show that was announced, I was like, what if I start doing like kind of little episodes for the death of Slim 7, right? To kind of work towards my match with David Kidd. So I'm like, that's a pretty good idea. So the first one, I don't know how many people picked up on it. I think a few. I uploaded that first one of just like Slim 7 getting hit by the car. I uploaded that the day that I left wrestling in 2023. A year later, the same day. And I was like, dang, I'm like, oh, that date's coming up. It was October 13th.
Okay.
Or no, it wasn't Left Wrestling. Sorry, it was the last post I had on social media. It was something like that. The
Okay.
last time I posted on social media, I was like, I'm gonna upload this video a year after that on social media, and that'll kind of be like full circle. So it just shows like where's Se7en been. I did like a whole warning graphic, like, oh, the disappearance of Se7en, da 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 da. Your discretion is advised. So did that. I had a lot of people text me. They were like, "Oh, that was pretty neat. Like, where's this going? You know, like you're this whole new character." They were already confused as to like why I had this new character.
It's cryptic. It's very, very cryptic when it comes to posting like that. You just want to leave you for more after that video, since you posted it that prior year for sure.
And then uploaded that, and then had a lot of people asking for part 2. I already had part 2 filmed because it was just one whole movie, but I just split it into 2.
Okay.
Edited the whole part 2 video, uploaded that. Kind of gave you that like, all right, first one was like, this is where Se7en is right now. This is how he died, number 2. So I showed that whole death scene. We were out till like 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning filming that. Did that. But I wanted that cliffhanger. I wanted to be like, okay, who killed him? And I put like the guy he was talking to on the phone was Vin Parker, who was actually the guy who was like picking him up from like to drive to a wrestling show or something. It was like, oh no, he's on the phone with Vin Parker. Vin Parker goes to pick him up, hits him with the car, kills him. And it just cuts to black. It just shows like the contact ID that says Vin Parker, or maybe it says Vin or something. And I really wanted that. Like, well, where's this? What could the next one be? So like the first one was where Se7en's at. Second one's the death of Se7en, and then that third one, that was going to be the introduction of Vin Parker. So, I did that whole tease where like upload the first 2. The third one, you got to go to the Cartel show to watch. So that was cool. I had a couple people. So I talked to the promoter, and she was like, yeah, that's so cool. So I sent her the first 2, and she's like, love it. So she uploads the first 2 in like one long movie, and then uploads the third one while it's happening at the show. And then that was a cool little like kind of promo or like teaser trailer, which I thought was pretty cool. It wasn't like a traditional, like, I'm back and I'm going to kick your ass. Like, it was like a movie. It was like the tying up or like the wrapping up of the last character. And this is the introduction to the new one, all in like a promo before my match, right? So it was like 3 minutes in total, but I'm pretty proud of that. Like, looking back at it, I was very critical. I was like unsure. I'm like, oh, maybe I don't do the promo, whatever. Just, not that it was too hard, but I wanted it to make sense, and I care about what I put out there. Hence why I didn't upload it that first show I kind of came out. I was like, no, there's something missing. So I'm glad I waited, because it got a way better reaction than I could have ever thought.
What was it like to change into Vin Parker and seeing what TWC has been working with you for that span of time? How did your identity change, not only like as a wrestler but as a person?
Funny you say that. Honestly, I think I really started to become this idea of Vin Parker like the day I left wrestling. Maybe not the day, but like I remember October 31st, 2023, I was like, okay, cut the blonde hair off. I was like, that's it. I had Halloween the next day, cut off my hair, dyed my hair, went back to a regular normal life. And there was this weird like sense of I want to become the best version of myself, right? I wrote down this whole list of like things in my journal that I wanted to improve on, right? I want to have a better whatever it was, hairstyle. I want to make more money. I want to become the best version of myself possible.
Right.
And I started looking to like looking at YouTube videos and stuff, like, okay, how do you like kind of like looking at self-improvement essentially, right? I want to become way better version of my true self. And I think that's where like the root of Vin Parker kind of came from, because then it almost became like a little bit of OCD. Like, I'm like, no, everything needs to be like perfect, because I need to be this perfect version of myself, right?
Like...
You know? So then I started looking at like American Psycho, you know. I'm not like, oh, it's
Mm-hmm.
my favorite horror movie, but like I watched the movie and I watched like the breakdown in the movie and I was like, I get it. I understand this. It's like hitting this part of me that's like, nope, everything, like my nails have to be trimmed, my hair has to be styled right, everything needs to be just like flawless, right? Um, so just like seeing that, and I'm like the flawless didn't come till after I came back into wrestling, but like just kind of that time off, I remember like putting so much into my appearance, really, really seeing little things that were like made me like imperfect, and it really like hurting my mind. Like I would like feel that irritation of like, oh, I just want to be like the
The
most
tiny little ticks, the little icks that's like you're looking at. You're like, no, that has to be in this certain way.
exactly. Yeah. And it becomes very, very toxic, you know? So I felt that
Yeah.
like frustration, you know? And so coming back into wrestling with the character, I was like, it's ironically just like, it's not like Patrick Bateman, American Psycho, because I like the movie. The movie's great, but the movie hit this part of me that I would like, when I was gone, that was like, I feel this. I understand why he feels this way, right? Obviously, I
It
tie this.
unlocks a certain part of you where it's something that's kind of missing, but with seeing the movie, it's like there's this little key that opened up to what you're doing in wrestling that's like, okay, this is
Yeah,
the hole that I needed.
yeah. And so I resonated with that more than anything I've ever done with the Se7en character. So I'm like, okay, how do we tie this into wrestling? I thought like the serial killer was cool because I remember I was talking about like the Ted Bundy thing, um, the like the wanting to be perfect was just like enough to drive you crazy, you know, at least drive me crazy.
Right.
So I'm like, there's got to be a way I can kind of tie that into this character. And ironically enough, it ended up just becoming American Psycho. But like, if you cut out that the whole like Patrick Bateman is like a serial killer thing in the movie, if you just made it about his OCD, I would have still turned it into like my own thing. Like I would have taken that from the movie
Yeah.
and I would have taken serial killer gimmick and kind of combined them both. You know what I'm saying? But he already did that in American Psycho, so it was kind of like, oh, it looks like I'm just kind of ripping off
Yeah.
of American Psycho. But
Some will notice, but like the true horror fans will be like, it's Patrick Bateman,
yeah,
that kind
but
of thing.
But I've learned to kind of make peace with it, because then you look at Cody Rhodes on Raw and they're like, oh, he's just the
Mm.
Homelander. Like, you know what
It's,
I mean? It's like, oh,
it's not
he's
even
just
hiding
that.
it.
No. So, I mean, a lot of characters too, like they're just, uh, their ideas taken from media and just flipped, you know, and just kind of made into their own. So I'm not like, I don't call myself the American Psycho, you know, like
Yeah.
I'm trying to put my own spin on it, you know? So of course there are going to be little things that like pay homage to like horror movies in general, not just American Psycho. Like the way Se7en died in Scream, the first scene was him talking on the phone, playing with the knife block, the same
Yeah.
way, what's her face? Drew Barrymore in the first Scream movie,
Yeah.
when she was making popcorn, she was playing with the knife block, like little kind of homages like that. There was another one in the movie too. I mean, in the video too. I can't remember what it was. I know it was like a little. I paid a little homage to Scream. Even with like the golden mask, where that was just like a mask I had. I didn't want to use like a ghost face mask because that seemed a little too like gimmicky. But yeah, I want to take like bits and pieces from horror movie media, or like trying to think like really any, or even like some like hardcore metal like music, like
Yeah.
little tidbits of everything, and just kind of like turn it into this own character. Things that like I feel would fit the character, not necessarily what I think is like cool. Like I said, American Psycho, great movie. I wouldn't put it in like my top 10. Like I'm not like, oh, I love the movie, that's why I'm the character. It's just like, no, that I feel that and it works, you know? So it's like, let's
Yeah.
take that works. Let's take that, and then these two puzzle pieces fit together. So
How has horror movies in general, and you kind of divulged on that, to mesh the things that you love in horror movies in general into wrestling? Was it how would it is it difficult to say, hey, I want to work on how I'll take a piece of Scream or a piece of Halloween? Like, did it take you time, or was it you're comfortable right off the bat being Vin Parker, using horror movies as a platform for you to be a character as a wrestler?
I think that kind of goes back to like my subconscious, where like just growing up, my mom is like a huge horror movie fan. Like every year she
Okay.
buys like the Spirit Halloween statues, like once every like one or two a year, and we're running out of places to put them. But like that's her,
Yeah.
like she's obsessed with them. So she would just kind of like she'd be either watching a horror movie, drinking a glass of wine at night, or we just talk about them, and it just kind of always fascinated me, and I'd always find myself like scared, but like really kind of like seek that like thrill, you know? Like it's the same reason you go on like a roller coaster where it's like, oh, it's scary, or like you kind of like touch that electric whatever, and you're like, this is, oh, it kind
Yeah.
of felt nice, you know? It's like a thrill.
Yeah.
So I always kind of liked that feeling growing up, and part of me just was like, what if I replicate that? But like becoming the character was just like diving into my subconscious of things I just watched growing up without realizing I was learning them, you know? Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I know a lot about the Scream movie. I know a lot about Michael Myers movements, or I know a lot about like little things like that when I didn't realize I know a lot about them until I'm putting this character together, and I'm like, oh, that would make sense because then I could do that like that. And then, so like mid match, a lot of times I don't even plan stuff, you know, like I'm not like, oh, and then this is where I'm gonna do this. I just feel it, you know? Like, what would a
Yeah.
like a sick psycho killer do here? Like, I think in my match I just worked with Hit, I like took my elbow off, and I was like looking at him, like giving him like the crazy eyes, and I like
Oh
tried to,
my
I like
god.
went to lick my elbow. I like licked my elbow for no reason. I was like, why did I lick my elbow?
Wow.
I just like, wow, what a sicko. You know, he's getting a sick thrill off of this guy that's like about to,
Yeah.
you know, get knocked out. And I'm just like, I just stare at him, and I kind of like do the whole head turn, lick my elbow. And I'm like, I just felt it, you know, like that was like not me, but that's just that other subconscious of like media that I've studied, you know?
It's like a jerk reaction almost, where like it doesn't even like it. All your inhibitions kind of went off. You're like, oh, I will do this part. Why did I do that?
Yeah.
Whatever, that kind
Or
of a thing.
even like looking at the camera. Like I remember I didn't even notice I did this till I watched the match back, where like I did this big move. He kicked out. I'm just laying there, and I see like the camera on the corner of my eye, and I kind of just stare at the
Dude,
camera, give it that like,
yes.
you know what I mean? Like little things like that where I was like, the cameras are there. Just kind of look at it, kind of like give it that like Billy Loomis
Yeah.
kind of like stare. Like, yeah, you know what you just saw. You know, like little stuff
Yeah.
like that, you know, I feel it. It just oozes out of me unintentionally.
Yeah. And we're gonna go to Rhodes Wrestling Association to go back in your stomping grounds over at Rhodes Wrestling Academy, and starting, you were in the very, very first match with Ozzy on the very first show
Mm.
back a couple of months ago. What was it like? What was the difference between um, Slim Seven and now with Vin Parker? How much has that changed within that span of time, being on the very first show over at Rhodes Wrestling Association?
Like the difference between the characters.
Like character wise, or what were some change? How did that change? Um, being the wrestler that you were at Rhodes Wrestling Academy, and now that you're Vin Parker.
Well, for one, and CM Punk's gonna hate me if he's watching this, but my move set, my move set kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier when I was kind of first getting into wrestling, which was like I tried when I first like Slim Seven when I was doing all that. I really tried to just do everything that I could. You know, I'm like, oh, I gotta do this move, I gotta do this move, like stuff like that. You know, but like with the Vin Parker stuff, I care more about moments. You know, there's not like you look at wrestling and like the difference between I don't know, like I know he's getting a bunch of heat right now, but like Ricochet and like Roman Reigns. Like Roman Reigns can't do what Ricochet does, but
Yeah.
he does it and gets Roman Reigns does what Roman Reigns does because of his moments, you know. And there's like there's the difference there. So I remember like subtly, like maybe subconsciously, like picking that up, watching it, and I'm like, wrestling isn't about just like flip, move. It's cool, but like it's the moments, you know? So I'm like, okay, with the Vin Parker stuff, I don't have to do what I think I can do, like move wise or whatever. I want to be more of a like, oh, that was a cool moment. Hence the like kind of look. You know what I mean? Like that's for sure the difference. I think if Se7en, if I still had that way of thinking, if I was in the show with that, it would have been a lot more of just like spots and like doing cool stuff and then like not picking my moments. Like that's what the crowd wants. You know, they want these moments to remember, not necessarily like, cool, I could do a double front flip off the top rope and that's probably going to be cool. But like, I'd rather have them like less is more, you know? That's number one thing Dustin always tells us. He might bust out a Canadian destroyer every now and then, but like at the end of the day, look at the characters he's done and look at the moments that he's made, you know? He didn't have to do crazy athletic stuff. He just, it goes back to, he always tells us this story when he first became Gold Dust, when he was working Sabio Vega. And Sabio was like, all right, just rub your butt into my midsection. And like just little stuff like that, you know, like
wow,
got the fans like, whoa, like it was like moments, you know, moments. So that's for sure with my new way of thinking with this whole new rebrand that I'm doing now. Like that's number one priority.
Because now this was recent and you faced Hit, and being the guy that winds up giving you the call to come back to wrestling to now working with him, what was that dynamic like, being, you know, the friend to someone that you're working with later on the later shows over at Rhodes Wrestling Association?
Easy. It's easy. It's easy.
Oh man, it's go back to,
yeah,
dang it. Okay,
easy.
good.
Because it was him, like we weren't even worried about the match. Like it was just like, as soon as they told us, like, okay, it's going to be Vin Parker versus Hit at the third show, we're like, okay, everyone else is screwed because they don't stand a chance. Match of the night, you know. Sorry, but we don't even have to do a lot, you know. But yeah, I was just like, okay, like we were in he came up to Corpus Christi with me the day before when we did the Cartel show. Then rode back, and then like it was like a 4-hour drive, and we didn't even start talking about the match till like the last 30 minutes like of the ride.
Wow,
so
you just winged it at that point.
yeah, like we had to be in the building like at 12, and we like looked at the call time wrong, so we ended up getting there at like 2. But we're driving back, and I'm like, so what are you thinking? What do you want to do? We already knew the match was happening for like weeks, but we're like, yeah, we'll talk about it later. Like, yeah, we'll do this. Okay, cool. We'll do that. No, what if we did this, though? Oh, that'd be really cool. Get to the show, kind of do a couple run-throughs, go out and do it. It was good. And we got a lot of good feedback from it. So I'm like, okay. And so I'm working him again February 21st for the Rhodes Cup. So we'll see how that goes.
And this year, of course, it's still very new. We're a couple of months in. What are some of your goals or milestones that you want to reach in 2025?
I think for starters, I can for sure say like I've reached how do I say this? Like in 2023, I really struggled with like enjoying life and like enjoying day-to-day moments in wrestling. I can say that for a fact this go around, even like this year, I don't even know if this counts like a goal because it's already been achieved, but like being happy, like living in the moment more with wrestling, you know, not just like because before what I was doing was I was just kind of going weekend to weekend, like, okay, I got to go to the next one. It was kind of like my drug, you know? So now it's like, nah, man, just everything's going to be cool. Just enjoy that I get to do this, you know, being grateful.
Right.
So it's not like a goal, but like, it's something that I can say proudly that, I've kind of, become more aware to in my life. So for sure that, but like to get into like real, like goals and like things I'm like, okay, I really need to do that. I want to do that for sure. Like hit as many states as I can this year.
Okay.
I've done a couple, but last year or 2 years ago in 2023, I was just kind of working like every part of Texas, and I really I got to see a lot of Texas, and it's cool, but I want to see other places now. You know, I want to go to New York. I want to go to California. You know, I want to get my name out there, really, you know. I was doing that in just Texas, but now it's like, okay, let's take a dive and kind of see what else is out there. So for sure that, and just, I guess, like keep the momentum going, you know, with what I'm doing now, at least with the enjoying wrestling as it is, doing it with people that I love, and continuing whether it's not really my character doing this, but like inspire people. You know, I get a lot of cool messages from people, so shout out to them, letting them know that like, oh, hey man, really good match. You inspire me to someday step in the ring, or hey man, you inspire me to go to the gym, or like little things like that. Because at the end of the day, you kind of get lost. All the wrestlers get lost with that idea of like wanting to inspire people because you just want to go and main event WrestleMania. You know, of course, that's the end all be all goal. Everyone wants to be the WWE champion, main event WrestleMania.
Of course.
But another reason we get into it is to inspire people and make them feel the way other people made us feel, you know? So
right.
I look at people like Dean Ambrose or Seth Rollins or AJ Styles, whoever. And I'm like, dang, they really lit this like fire underneath me. That's like, it inspires me to go and want to be better and do the other things, right? Like,
right.
I want to be a wrestler, or I want to go to the gym, or little things like when I was in track, I used to run track, and I didn't really like running track, but I was like, nah. I remember just like, because I didn't really like running track because of the practices, it would kill me. But like seeing those guys would like really like inspire me. And I was like, okay, this is just one little step closer to becoming a pro wrestler, you know? I remember like write my name on the track meet lists, and it was like, okay, I'm not there yet, but this is another step to becoming a pro wrestler because I'm getting in that shape, you know? So, little things like that though. Like I love to inspire people, and it's not really like my gimmick, you know. I'm not John Cena, like hustle, loyalty, respect. But like
Yeah.
if you can watch me kill people and take some sort of inspiration from that, you know, all to you. No, but like it's pretty neat though. Like knowing that like I inspire people and I'm able to bring horror fans into wrestling, or like that's the other thing too, is like bringing fans that aren't fans of wrestling into wrestling, you know, because
there's a guy right there. There's a guy right there. That's a Danhausen right there. That's the same exact model he does. Where you can see it.
yeah,
There he
yeah,
is. Danhausen should be there. So like that's the thing. It's similar to what Danhausen's doing, where non-wrestling fans like took inspiration. Like, hey, I remember this from, I forgot which movie he pulled. Oh, this is from Nosferatu. I'm like, oh, I'm a wrestling fan now. So it's one of those like very approachable things, because that was how I kind of got to understand how you're doing. Because like even I was at that TWC, I was like, wow, okay, this is Vin Parker's very, very different. And that's how I got to like, that's what Danhausen was. It was like, yeah, he just, I remember his debut. He was like, all right, come in, curse someone, don't explain, leave.
yeah.
That's how it is when he does that too. So for the same aspect that you're doing, where there's an aura of mystery, that's kind of very unique to what you're doing. So that's what kind of like really got me interested in having this conversation, because now I'm understanding a little bit more of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I like that idea of like bringing people from all different worlds into wrestling. I remember hearing Darby Allin talk about skateboarding and bringing that into wrestling, like how he's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
bringing all these skateboard fans or like skateboarders or whatever and getting them to watch wrestling. Like he had Tony Hawk on a couple promos and was like stuff
Yeah.
like that, where it's like that's pretty neat, and it's kind of like merging the worlds. Another person that I'm gonna get a lot of heat for calling this out, but I thought was like pretty genius was Logan Paul coming into wrestling, because you're taking all of his
Right.
outside media fans, like, and you're bringing them into this sport because they want to see Logan, like stuff like that. I'm trying to bring, if I wear, or shout out to Freddie from FVG Media, I think, I forget his Instagram, but he used to film the Cartel shows. He wore my flawless Vin Parker long sleeve I started selling to like a concert or something. People were like, dude, that's a sick long sleeve, and it's like, it goes from like, that's a cool
Nice.
t-shirt to like, where'd you get it? To like, oh, you got it from this wrestler. Let's take a look at his social media. That's really cool. Wrestling looks really cool. We should go to a wrestling show. Go to a wrestling show. It's just like little things like that that make you stick out as just more than a wrestler, because there's enough wrestlers in wrestling. To me, I'm just like, all right, man, we can't all be Bret Hart. We can't all be Kurt Angle, like
Yeah.
you gotta stick out, and we have all these sources to pull from. I was like, okay, what do I resonate with the most that I could bring in, So I found this, I didn't, like, not intentionally, but like this genre of like horror movie, more exclusively females. But they just love the horror movies, and they go to these wrestling shows. It's like, oh, it's so cool. And then it's cool because I don't just invite them to like see my matches with the horror gimmick, but
Yeah.
they end up having a great time, because it's just fun. Like the first show to the last show. Like I'm not just like, hey, come to my show. This is, just watch my match. I'm like, no, literally come to the show and like just have a fun time, because it's so different. It's
Yeah.
such a different environment. Even just getting my outside friends to do that too, where it's like, oh, we're just going because we know him. And then it's like, yo, that was actually really cool. Like slowly kind of expanding the world of wrestling. I think that's just like super cool to me, bringing people together and kind of giving them something to kind of like, oh yeah, man, like talk about. And I don't know, it's cool to me. I love bringing people together any way I can.
Yeah. Man, this is fun. This was fun. I was checking the timer. I'm like, it was worthwhile having the conversation. So thanks for having you on, and I'm gonna end this conversation with this. And if you were in the same room as an adolescent version of you, what would you like to talk to him about?
So now I have to like put myself in the mindset of how I used to be. There's like a couple of things I could say, but if I had him here, dang it, that'd be weird. I would probably say, I don't know when I really started doing this, but uh, I would probably tell him what my dad would probably be telling him as at
Okay.
that moment in his life too, which is just like, enjoy the moments. I'll tie this in with a story too. I know I kind of
Mm,
said this with the wrestling thing, but this always sticks out to me. Um, and of course, little Sal or little Vin would have to learn the hard way, like I did. But if there was a way I could tell him so he could just understand it immediately, it would be to enjoy moments in your life and don't take anything for granted. Because the
right.
story that goes into that, I don't know if my dad wants me saying this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Uh, me and my dad,
It's an open
we went.
forum at this point.
Me and my dad went on a hike, and we ended up taking like a bunch of different. It was all these forks in the trail. It was like, okay, you could take this path, you go this way, this path. So we thought that the trail was like, I don't know, 5-6 miles. Ended up being like a 30-mile trail. And yeah,
Wow.
we were like, we didn't know where we were. So that ends up being like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. We left at like 2 in the afternoon, like a whole 12 hours just hiking. So we're just looking like to get out of here. Like there's no more signs. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere. And so I remember we were getting tired, so we just sat on this log. And I remember looking out, and you could see through the trees. You could see like the tree line. I think there was like a lake, and you could see this big white full moon in the sky. And he's like, "Man, we've been trying so hard to get out of here that we forget what's all around us and this view, you know? We kind of taking it for granted." He's like, "Dude, just look. Isn't that cool? Like, don't go so fast sometimes, slow down and take a look around, I know Ferris Bueller said that too. He's like, life moves pretty fast, if you don't look around sometimes you'll miss it. So stuff like that, like I'm very blessed to say I've had a lot of awesome moments in wrestling just happen to me, and I've got to spend time and make great friends. So like I if I could tell him anything, it would just be to like really, really absorb everything, Wrestling isn't just about being like the greatest of all time. This is such an awesome industry where we bring in so many people in together. And we get to have a lot of cool moments, we get to share a lot of cool things with each other. And yeah, and it just so happens to be our passion too. So I don't know, probably that though,
Okay, interesting. So I have nothing left to get.
No, I was just gonna say. So essentially, just watch the end of Ferris Bueller. Yeah,
it's like what?
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, that's all I got for you.
That we started off anticlimactic, we ended it anticlimactically.
There you go.
This is a full circle episode.
Very much.
But I have nothing. I have nothing left to give. You have the floor. Where can we find you?
Social medias will be at Real Vin Parker. I just made a Patreon, so I think it's going to be patreon.com/Vin Parker. So get exclusive content on there. Exclusive social media uploads. I'm not going to upload on my personal stuff, or maybe I will just at a later date. You'll get matches. You'll get exclusive promos. I'm going to do some monthly giveaways too, just some exclusive Vin Parker merchandise too. So these are going to be some unreleased items that I'm only going to be selling through Patreon to do a monthly giveaway every month. So check that out. For sure, my YouTube channel, I'm going to upload all my matches there. And then, just social media, stuff like that. Check it out.
Awesome. So for those who are watching and listening to this episode, thank you for tuning in. And we're on to the next one.